It is the 8th model and the only model introduced in the 2023 rerun of the Rockman.EXE collaboration. It is RME07 DarkTrance, with a kit of Predator, Railgun, Spark Strike, biped legs, and the leg ability of Adapter, which changes all terrain matches to A rank if that are not already at A or S rank. Now, as the single and only model introduced in the 2023 rerun, DarkTrance is most certainly a very iconic character to anyone that has watched or played the Mega Man Battle Network series, but compared to RockTrans, who is very well known as being that all-rounder type that focuses more on balance more than offense or defense, DarkTrance, on the other hand, kind of true to how Dark Mega Man behaved in the series, focused on one thing and one thing only, and that was maneuverability and power. Predator on the head part is a melee-based skill that is a rather interesting combat skill that has an ailment, but at the same time not. But upon attacking the target, it will steal all of the charge they have in their Metaforce gauge. And I don't mean just a portion like Charge Drain, it will steal all of it in one fell swoop. But as a cost to this, as a cooldown, it will also inflict Confuse on himself, which means that for 3 turns he will be unable to choose his own action, and also unable to choose his own target, which means he is susceptible to even accidentally damaging or attacking an ally while in this state. Or this can be cancelled, of course, by Stat Cleanse or anyone that attacks him first to shake him out of it. Railgun on the right arm is a conventional shooting skill, which is basically just the shooting version of Pile, which has passive defense ignore and innate and native pierce damage to it, which means it'll have very good base power, but also hit just a little bit harder than what you may see here on paper when it comes to its base stats, because it's ignoring a portion of, if not all of, the enemy's resist stats when firing at it, especially darning the very iconic cannon design that is very well known and loved in the Mega Man series. Spark Strike on the left arm is another conventional skill, but one that we have not seen super often except on a handful of models. But simply explained, upon attacking and using the skill, it will consume up between 5 and 10% of your Metaforce gauge, similar to how Charge Blade or Charge Buster would go. But using that 10%, 5 to 10%, will also buff your heat and cool stats of your next turn by about 50%. That means if you were already going pretty fast before, well, thanks to this, you will essentially be going Mach 2 or Mach 3 once that speed does officially hit that bonus. And especially makes it a lot easier for him to outrun targets or finish his cooldown in next heat phase, to even potentially curb any dangerous enemies and maybe even slip a turn in before they even have a chance to react. Biped legs means he has very good coverage on all terrains, and that's even before Adapter is factored in. But with Adapter being factored in, I really don't even have to touch on his terrain matching, because he's basically going to operate like a float leg, which gets A rank on every terrain, similar to what Adapter basically does. In addition, that also does mean he does get to keep S rank on Cyber, which everyone gets. And across the board, even though his stats are relatively similar in a lot of cases to RockTrans, which is also to be expected in a lot of cases, again, he also has a higher emphasis on power despite the relatively lighter armor. With a head HP of about 3550, right arm about 3350, left arm about 2750, and legs at 4k, he's not too shabby in the armor department, but also would recommend exercising some caution as he does have just a little bit lighter armor than desired on that left arm in particular, especially because that's where a lot of his good speed's going to be coming from once he does hit the field. His leg stats aren't too bad, kind of in that glass cannon zone, but actually, despite that, very well-rounded across the board too. A mobility of 888s is very, very good, close to 900, means he's going to already have very good speed right from start, which RockTrans already had, but DarkTrance in particular is basically taking that a step higher. A melee resist of 854 and a shoot resist of 896. They're not bad. Like I said, they're pretty decent at best, and especially for being a well-rounded leg like his, that is also not factoring in any terrain bonuses or Meta-Rodder bonuses. So because he already has speed pretty much down pat between his leg ability and his base stats, it would honestly be encouraged if you are going to use DarkTrance to maybe pack him with a Meta-Rodder to buff his resist stats a little higher, and that'll round him out just a little bit better and make him more versatile for extended fights. And an evade of 1059 isn't too shabby either. He'll have a pretty decent time dodging or grazing a lot of stuff. Really shouldn't have to worry about DarkTrance too heavily on the field. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate him a very solid 7.5 out of 10. He's very well-rounded, has a lot of good and very nasty skills under his belt, and even if he is a little light in a couple areas, he actually does kind of round himself out just pretty nicely and kind of comps a good chunk of those weaknesses. A couple notable things I do see about DarkTrance as potential concerns, though, is the fact that he has two skills that rely on Metaforce Charge that don't really synergize with each other super well. Now, granted, Predator stealing Metaforce Charge and then Spark Strike making use of it do synergize well, yes, but after he uses it, what then? Sure, he'll have some pretty good base power, but he really doesn't have anything to use all that extra charge with, so it's really only going to be very good for boosting your speed if necessary, or even procking a Metaforce nuke if you can maybe time it right. And you also do need to be very careful of that Confuse ailment that Predator does inflict. Railgun is probably going to be his more conventional and best form of damage across the board at any time he's on the field. As mixed parts, I'd very easily have to rate him higher at an 8.5 out of 10. Given that his synergy by itself is there, but it's kind of iffy, if you mix his parts up, you can most certainly make a lot of very powerful forces to be reckoned with all of his parts. Predator, this is pretty much the second time that we've ever seen the skill, the first of which was on Unit 1 from the EVA collab. Railgun, very solid conventional skill, even if it is a heavy part, very good for base and conventional shooting damage you really can't ever go wrong with. Spark Strike if you need that extra boost of speed and have some Metaforce to make use of, and even if the legs are a little light on the armor, that speed and mobility are things you really can't ever go wrong with either. Just exercise a little caution if you are going to use them, and make sure you can comp those light resist stats with a Meta Rodder who can fix it.